Hey you guys, how y'all doing? Welcome back to Land and welcome to our new series. And today we're talking about sex and sexuality. Well, our main focus today is going to be on sex. But before we get into that, we have exciting new faces. Well, one new face, and we have a familiar face. We're welcoming them back and a new welcome to ND. ND, say hey, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
And welcome to Dominic. Y'all know Dominic.
Always a pleasure to be on Land.
All right, so we're jumping into the meat of the matter. We're talking exciting stuff. We're talking about sex today. Sex. When I was growing up, sex was such a hard topic to talk about. It was it was a weird, taboo. Felt like I shouldn't be a part of this conversation. I would blush if I heard the word sex. What is sex? In your own words, tell me, define sex.
So when we talk about sex, we're basically talking about intercourse between two persons, where penetration, stimulation happens for the purpose of either reproduction or pleasure. Yeah? So that's been my basic breakdown on
it. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is that, but it is also where you differentiate between male and female, and well, a lot more now because, science is proving that we don't only get the X and X chromosome or the XY chromosome, we get sometimes XXY and XXX. So, a lot of things are evolving just as sex is. And so I guess we have to get with the program or something like that. But yeah, it is also intercourse between two people. I don't know if it's specified male and female, but I just say two people because you can never know, That's my take on sex, my definition.
I guess I'm still younger than as young in my mind as I thought, because I'm still blushing by these definitions. So guys, when we speak about, today we're not speaking about gender, we're speaking about sex, we're talking about penetration or whatever you want to call it, between two people. So we're speaking about the view of the church as it relates to sex, and we're looking at society. So when we look at society and we look at just this world right now, sex is everywhere. I'm sure you would agree. Sex is on the TV, sex is right in your stores, when they're selling clothes to you, sex is everywhere. Why is it that there are such varying views on sex in one society? We're looking at the church's view and, the society's view at large.
Well, we have to look through the specific perspective of the persons who are basically controlling the narrative. So when we look in terms of our wider society today, sex is used as something of liberation and empowerment. It's used as a place of rebellion. There's a certain country right now where women are running bare-chested to show themselves as being liberated from what they believe is social oppression. Yeah, so if the man could run bare-chested or bareback, then I could run bare-chested as well. As we look in the perspective of the church, there has been continually a purity narrative of the church, and therefore there is the concept that if you expose persons to the discussion of sex, then it will encourage them or entice them to go and experience it. Yeah. So I'll leave that there for now.
Let's say that you expose somebody to a sexual conversation or sexual topic. I'm not giving my opinion now. I'm saying with regard to the church, it is almost as if you withholding information to educate people, young children especially, about a topic that is so it is so strict and so important and necessary. And it's a natural occurrence to feel for sex. So when you deliberately withhold information from a youth so as to suppress the sexual desires, it is in fact a form of ignorance, in my opinion. And so when society now teaches these self-same Christians that it is okay and there is nothing wrong with it, it is much easier to hold on to that belief rather than that what they were taught or not taught, I should say, by their Christian parents and mentors.
So then, Andy, are you saying that society is playing a role that the church refused to play?
No, I am not saying that. I am saying that, well, I can only speak based on when I was growing up. I believe that there's information out there. It's everywhere. If you want to find it, you will find it. And even when you don't want to find it, it is there for the taking. So we're exposed to it regardless. So what you find is that whilst the church, well, they will tell you about sex, but they won't give you, the entire synopsis. They will give you what they want to give you. So in order that you are enlightened and you are educated on the topic, they have to, give everything. Don't hold back the information. And therefore, when the youth are presented with information out there, then they can choose, or they can, they can dissect the information properly. They can weigh the pros and the cons. They can compare what they were taught from what is being taught to them at the time by somebody else, and they can choose for themselves. At the end of the day, they're still the ones making the decision. However, now they are more educated on the topic and better able to make decisions for themselves.
Thank you. Dominic, would you say that the church is limited or perhaps still views sex as taboo to some extent, if even?
I would say in certain sects, because when we must recognize that the church itself right now is so large, and there are various denominations. So I cannot make a general statement on it, because there are churches that have broken those barriers of not wanting to have that taboo approach, but really to expose their congregation and even their young people to it. So I believe it's probably certain churches, and it could be because of I think Andy touched on it while we were talking off camera, as it relates to nurturing. Yeah, so that whole concept of the persons that are charged with sharing that information, they themselves may not be fully comfortable talking about it because they were never exposed to it in such a way. Yeah, so we're really seeing, especially within I would say your younger churches, that the ministers and persons who have the information, probably your social workers, your sex ed professionals who work in society in that capacity, they are able to come to the churches now and to give that type of information, recognizing that the times we are living in, our young people are exposed every single way, in every single direction, with sex and sexuality and sexual images, that you really cannot hide from it. You really cannot hide from it anymore. So I believe that the church is now taking a proactive approach to really talk and to deal with the whole topic of sex and sexuality.
Okay, thank you. So my next question would be, with all of this information out there that is so readily available, perhaps I would say it is even too readily available for people, don't you think that, well, in your opinion, would you say that perhaps people are being introduced to sex too early in the wrong way, or is it perfectly okay that they're being introduced to sex and they're receiving that information, so then now they could deal with it no matter what their age is, because it's they're gonna be exposed to it anyways? What's your view on all of this information being so available to people?
I'm an advocate for age-appropriate information. Yeah, and because information is so readily available, we have a lot of persons that have been exposed, especially to sexual content that they are not ready for. And it's actually really tainting the mind of so many people and so much of our young people now, because of the, I will call it sexual trauma. And we are talking both in having a sexual experience before they are ready for it, or being exposed to some level of sexual content, yeah, whether it be by accident or purposefully, or whether someone older exposed them to it. So that is actually creating a negative narrative in the mind in terms of how sex is viewed. And research is out there to show that it actually has a serious implication to how persons are able, well, males and females are able to relate to each other in this time, because sexual stimulation is so readily available without actually physically going out there and look for a partner, because of all the content on social media and the internet. Yeah, so I truly believe that there are cases where persons are introduced to sexual information that they are not ready for, or it was not appropriately related to them.
Jump in, Andy.
Okay, I'd like to touch on a couple of things that he said. Okay, first of all, he meant Martin. He mentioned that the church should bring in social workers and such, right? But within the church, there are social workers, because the church has expanded in such a way that there are so many different people there now. So what it is that the church should have a specific community where sex is easily spoken about and discussed, and so people don't feel like it's so touchy a subject or forbidden a subject. So when you're exposed to such information, like you said, you rightly said it, I agree 110%, that you're exposed sometimes at a young age where you're not ready for that kind of information, and the bombardment from social media and so on. When you are bombarded with that kind of information, and you know that there is a haven where you can speak about it freely and be educated on said topic, it's no longer something to be scared of. It's not, because whether or not we want it, it is there. And whether we're young or old, there is nothing to dictate society. We don't say, don't speak about this there. And I mean, there are people who are sensible enough not to do it, but there are others who could care less. If there's a child present, if there's a teenager present, people will do whatever they'd like to do regardless. So if there is such a place where you can go to, it's just like, say I am not a church goer and I have this little safe place where I speak to my kids. They know they can come to me to speak to me there. Mommy, I saw this and that. Mommy, I felt that way when I saw this. And so I believe that if there is a place where people can speak freely and without judgment, that it'll balance it out. Not entirely, but I think that some people, not everybody can be, saved, but majority, and that's important. For every person that can come to you without knowing that they won't be judged or looked down upon, then yeah, I think that would make a world of difference.
Thank you. So that's great. You provided a solution for the church, but we're not only looking at for the church. What about in society? What would be because in my own words, I would say that you're creating a filter system and how do you call that? So you'd come and you basically help your child. Your child is pretty much breaking down whatever it is that they've heard and whatever. I'll say filter system in a church environment. How would that apply in society?
Well, in society, I mean, the church is part of the society.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, like outside of the church, sorry. So like I'm looking at it as church versus like outside of church, and I'm referring to outside of the church as like society in terms, because I do not have a better word to use.
Right. So, okay. You're asking like what is in place for the youth that are exposed to these things at a young age in society now? What is in place
that
for them?
I'm not in church?
I cannot tell you because, well, I'm one of those people. I was raised in church, so it's not as if, you know, I was exposed to it at a young age, and I was out there and I knew exactly what to do or where to go. So I would say that responsible parenting has a huge role to play in that. And apart from that, the schools should have counseling or safe places, like I mentioned about the church. The home should have that, and you will find that not everybody will take these things seriously because people don't understand the impact that it has on the youth while they grow. So if that is in place within each household, and I mean that's asking a lot, but if it is, and there's an avenue in the schools, I think that is of huge importance, the schools, because when you meet somebody who has a different upbringing to yours, and you given so much to take in their presence, in their circle, you have to unlearn all these things. And so when you bring it to somebody else, an adult who knows better, who teaches you better, then you know you're better able to apply certain things and be better in society.
Thank you. Would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the importance of the parents to really educate themselves on how to breach that and to broach that topic with their children, to be the main source of information. Because even as we talk about society today, we recognize that even as we look at the US, that there is a major battle right now between various school boards and various parent bodies as it relates to what type of sexual education their children are receiving. Yeah. So recognize that while we may believe that a certain sect of society or certain persons would be responsible enough to relay that information, we recognize that what would have been appropriate at one time in society is no longer appropriate in this society, and as Andy said, it's constantly evolving. Yeah, and the evolution of that information may not always go in alignment with your understanding or what you are comfortable with. So I believe the first place of socialization is really the household. So parents to do their due diligence. Especially, let's look at it within a Caribbean context. One of the challenges we have in the Caribbean is that we tend to hide certain information from our children. So growing up, instead of referring to our sexual organs as penis or vagina and stuff like that, Caribbean parents will give it all kind of names. You understand? All kind of names that you have never heard about in your life. Yeah. So not properly educating the child about being comfortable to really identify these things and to know what it means. Yeah. So it really speaks to the parents training themselves and being comfortable enough to have this type of conversation with their child. So when they reach that age where they are getting external information, they'll be in a better position to decipher what they should take and what they should throw away. Yeah? Because outside they're not going and tell you, bring the talking penis and vagina on the outside.
Let me just add something. He said something about where the Caribbean parents are failing, and I can only speak to Caribbean parents because I was raised with Caribbean parents. I think a lot of it has to do with ignorance as well. So what they were taught by their parents and what their parents were taught is what is being brought down to us. And because we have so much information now available, we begin to question what they're saying and asking, why certain things are certain ways and so on. And they do not have the answers for us because for them it's fairly new and they aren't educated on such. So we need to take it upon ourselves now to educate ourselves about what our parents are teaching us that they're missing out on, because they do not know everything and we don't know everything either. I mean, when we're teaching our children, I'm sure there are things we'll leave out. So we can only teach what we know. And I think with them, it's that they think that whatever they were taught, that's it and that's that. So, sometimes we have to take it on our own to do our own little research sometimes.
Well, I definitely agree with that. Guys, I'm gonna put a pause in this conversation. It's really informative. I feel like we have a lot to talk about still. There's so much more we have to cover on sex and sexuality. I feel like we'll talk about sex in terms of gender, but not today though. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming out and just sharing this information because I'm so appreciative of it. And to my YouTube family, those of you who have not joined Nicola Land, go ahead and do that. Like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, that they should subscribe and join this little community here where we are going to share a lot more information with you. Thank you again. Bye.
Bye.